The crack of palm against flesh echoes through the ballroom like a gunshot. Every champagne glass freezes midair. Every conversation dies. 300 of New York's wealthiest citizens stand paralyzed beneath crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's homes. And at the center of it all, 72-year-old Mabel Thornton staggers backward, her weathered hands flying to her face. The red mark blooms across her cheek like a wound opening in slow motion. The man who struck her doesn't step back, doesn't apologize, doesn't even blink. Darius Kingsley III stands there in his $3,000 Italian suit, his jaw tight with rage, his eyes burning with the kind of contempt that only comes from a lifetime of never hearing the word no. You think you can just show up here? His voice cuts through the silence like broken glass. You think you belong in the same room as us? Mabel's pearl necklace, the only valuable thing she owns, a gift from her late husband 40 years ago, catches the light as she trembles. Her simple navy dress, elegant but clearly not designer, marks her as different from every other woman in this room. But it's her eyes that tell the real story. Because even as tears form, even as her cheek throbs with pain, something else flickers there. Something that looks almost like recognition. Like she's been waiting for this moment. The crowd watches. Nobody moves. A woman in the back covers her mouth with white-gloved hands. A man near the bar looks away, suddenly fascinated by his drink. The orchestra has stopped playing, their instruments hanging silent and useless. This is the annual Kingsley Foundation Charity Gala. The event that raises millions for children's hospitals and homeless shelters. The event where Manhattan's elite come to feel good about themselves while wearing jewelry that could feed entire neighborhoods. And right now, every single person in this room is watching a 31-year-old billionaire assault an elderly widow. Not one of them says a word. Darius leans closer to Mabel, his breath hot against her face. My father built everything you see around you. Everything. And you're nothing but a charity case, a leftover from a dead man's guilt. His friends behind him, 4 young men in matching expensive suits, laugh like this is the funniest thing they've ever witnessed. But here's what Darius doesn't know. Here's what nobody in this room knows. Mabel Thornton isn't just some poor widow who wandered into the wrong party. She's the woman who holds a secret that could burn the entire Kingsley empire to the ground. And that slap? That single act of cruelty witnessed by 300 people? It just started a clock. 1 hour from now, Darius Kingsley III will lose everything. His money, his power, his name, all of it can. But right now, in this frozen moment, he has no idea what's coming. He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks his father's name protects him from consequences. He's about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. Because karma doesn't always come fast. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it watches. And sometimes, when it finally arrives, it doesn't just knock on your door. It kicks it down. Mabel straightens her spine. Slowly. Deliberately. The tears are still there, but they've changed. They're no longer tears of pain. There's something else entirely. She looks directly at Darius, and when she speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper. But somehow, in the dead silence of that ballroom, everyone hears it. Your father knew, she says. He always knew. Darius's smirk falters. Just for a second. Just enough. Knew what? He tries to laugh it off, but something cold has crept into his voice. What are you talking about, old woman? Mabel doesn't answer. She simply turns, her simple black heels clicking against the marble floor, and walks toward the exit. She doesn't run. Doesn't hurry. Every step is measured, precise, like a woman who knows exactly where she's going. The crowd parts for her without thinking about it. Darius watches her go, that flicker of uncertainty growing in his chest. But then his friend Marcus claps him on the shoulder, and the moment passes. Don't worry about her, man, Marcus says, grinning. She's just some crazy widow trying to cause drama. Yeah. Darius straightens his tie, pushing down that nagging feeling. Yeah, you're right. He lifts his champagne glass and drains it in one swallow. The party slowly comes back to life around him. The orchestra starts playing again. Conversations resume, quieter now, more cautious. Nobody wants to talk about what just happened. But they all saw it. They all remember. And in exactly 53 minutes, every single one of them will wish they'd done something. Outside the ballroom, Mabel Thornton pulls out a phone that looks far too expensive for a woman who supposedly lives on Social Security. Her hands are steady now. The trembling is gone. She dials a number from memory. "It's done," she says when the line connects. "He did exactly what we knew he would." The voice on the other end is calm, professional. "We have everything. Video, audio, 300 witnesses. The board is already being notified." Mabel closes her eyes. For a moment, she allows herself to remember. Her husband Jerome, dead 15 years now. The promises that were broken. The truth that was buried. "How long?" she asks. 1 hour. Maybe less. The clause in the will is ironclad. Public disgrace triggers automatic transfer. Mabel nods, even though no one can see her. Then we wait. "Mrs. Thornton? Are you sure about this?" Once this starts, there's no going back. She opens her eyes and looks up at the night sky, the stars invisible behind New York's endless lights. "My husband built that company," she says quietly. "Every brick, every deal, every penny of that fortune. It started with Jerome. And they erased him. They took everything and pretended he never existed." She pauses. "I've been waiting 15 years for this moment. I'm sure." She hangs up and tucks the phone away. Then she walks to the corner of the street, where a black town car is waiting. The door opens as she approaches. Inside, a man in his 60s sits reviewing documents. He looks up as she slides in beside him. "Well?" he asks. "It's over," Mabel says. "Darius Kingsley just destroyed himself, and he doesn't even know it yet." The man, her lawyer, and her late husband's oldest friend, smiles grimly. "Then let's begin." The car pulls away from the curb, leaving the glittering gala behind. And inside that ballroom, Darius Kingsley raises another glass of champagne, laughing with his friends about the crazy old woman who had the nerve to show up at his party. He has no idea that in 51 minutes, his entire world is about to collapse. But we're just getting started. Because you don't know the full story yet. You don't know why Mabel was really at that gala. You don't know what secret she's been hiding for 15 years. And you definitely don't know what Darius's father did to her husband, the crime that started all of this. Stay with me, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about justice, patience, and the true cost of cruelty. What would you do if someone slapped you in front of hundreds of people, and not one person stood up for you? Would you fight back immediately, or would you wait for the perfect moment to strike? Tell me in the comments. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 10,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Now let me tell you what Darius Kingsley doesn't know about the woman he just humiliated. 47 minutes remain. Darius stands at the center of his circle, basking in the glow of his own reflection. The incident with the old woman has already faded from his mind, replaced by the familiar comfort of admiration. "That was savage, bro." His friend Terrence shakes his head, grinning. "Did you see her face? She deserved it." Darius adjusts his cufflinks, platinum embedded with small diamonds. "These people think they can just walk in here like they belong. My father would have done the same thing." But as the words leave his mouth, something shifts in his chest. A memory he doesn't want surfaces anyway. His father, Raymond Kingsley, 6 months before his death. Sitting in his study, looking older than Darius had ever seen him. Tired. Haunted. "Son, there are things about this family you don't understand. Things I should have told you years ago." Darius had laughed it off. His father was always dramatic near the end, always talking in riddles. The cancer was eating at his brain, making him paranoid. "Whatever it is, Dad, it can wait." But it couldn't wait. Because 3 weeks later, Raymond Kingsley was dead. And whatever secret he'd been trying to share died with him. Or so Darius thought. Now, standing in this ballroom with champagne buzzing through his blood, he pushes the memory away. His father was a great man who built an empire from nothing. That's the only story that matters. "Yo, Darius." Marcus nudges him. The Henderson sisters are looking this way. You want me to call them over? Darius smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Later. I need some air. He walks toward the balcony, leaving his friends behind. The night air is cold against his face, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the ballroom. Below him, the city stretches out in every direction, millions of lights twinkling like promises. All of this, he thinks, all of this is mine. But even as the thought forms, that nagging feeling returns. The look in the old woman's eyes when she said those words. Your father knew. He always knew. Knew what? He pulls out his phone and dials his assistant. She answers on the second ring, even though it's nearly midnight. Mr. Kingsley? Patricia, I need you to look into something. There was a woman at the gala tonight. Older, silver hair, wearing a simple black dress. Her name is... He pauses. He never asked her name. Why would he? She was nobody. Sir? Never mind. Just look into any elderly women associated with the foundation. Anyone who might have a grudge against the family. I'll have something for you in the morning. Tonight, Patricia. I want it tonight. He hangs up before she can respond. The city continues to sparkle below him, indifferent to his growing unease. 41 minutes remaining. Meanwhile, across town, Mabel Thornton sits in her small apartment in Harlem. The place is modest, clean but worn, filled with photographs and memories of a life that was stolen from her. On the wall hangs a portrait of her husband, Jerome Thornton. He was a handsome man, broad-shouldered with kind eyes and a smile that could light up any room. In the picture, he's wearing a hard hat, standing in front of a construction site that would eventually become Kingsley Tower, the crown jewel of the Kingsley Empire. But his name appears nowhere on that building. Nowhere in the company records. Nowhere in any of the official history. Because Raymond Kingsley erased him. Mabel traces her finger along the frame, remembering. 1987. Jerome and Raymond had been partners. Best friends, even. Together, they built Kingsley Construction from a small operation into something that could compete with the giants. But when the company finally hit big, when the first major contract came through, Raymond made his move. He pushed Jerome out. Claimed the work as his own. Used his connections, his family name, his white skin, to take everything. Jerome fought back. Hired lawyers, gathered evidence, prepared for a battle that would expose the truth. He died of a heart attack 2 weeks before the case was supposed to go to court. The doctors said it was natural. Stress, they explained. His heart just gave out. But Mabel knew better. She'd seen the fear in her husband's eyes those last few weeks. The way he looked over his shoulder. The phone calls that came at strange hours. She could never prove anything. But she knew. And she swore, standing over his grave, that one day the truth would come out. That was 15 years ago. Tonight, that day has finally arrived. Her phone buzzes. A text from her lawyer. Board meeting scheduled for 11 p.m. Emergency session. They're reviewing the disgrace clause now. Mabel reads the message twice, letting the words sink in. 15 years of planning. 15 years of waiting. 15 years of watching the Kingsley family enjoy the fortune that should have been hers. All of it comes down to the next 37 minutes. She looks at Jerome's portrait one more time. I promised you, she whispers. I promised I'd make them pay. The portrait doesn't answer. But she swears, just for a moment, that his smile grows a little wider. Back at the gala, Darius's phone buzzes. He glances at the screen, expecting Patricia with information about the old woman. Instead, it's a message from the Kingsley corporate board. Emergency meeting called. Your presence required immediately. Conference room B, Kingsley Tower. His blood runs cold. Emergency meetings don't happen at midnight. Emergency meetings don't happen during the most important charity event of the year. Something is very wrong. He starts walking toward the exit, his mind racing. What could possibly be so urgent? The quarterly reports were fine. The merger talks were on track. There were no scandals brewing, no lawsuits pending. Then why does he feel like the ground is about to open up beneath him? His friends call after him, confused, but he doesn't stop. He pushes through the crowd, past the same frozen faces that watched him strike an old woman just 20 minutes ago. None of them meet his eyes. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispers, "Your father knew. He always knew." He shoves through the ballroom doors and steps into the night. 34 minutes remaining. The town car is waiting. His driver opens the door without a word, and Darius slides inside. The leather seats feel cold. The silence feels heavy. "Kingsley Tower," he says. Fast. The car pulls away from the curb. The city blurs past the windows. And Darius Kingsley has no idea that he's driving toward the end of his life as he knows it. What do you think is waiting for Darius at that meeting? And do you believe some secrets are worth waiting 15 years to reveal? Tell me in the comments. Because this story is far from over. And the secret that Mabel has been hiding? It's about to destroy everything Darius thought he knew about his family. The elevator rises 63 floors in under a minute. Darius watches the numbers climb, his reflection staring back at him from the polished brass doors. He looks confident, powerful, in control. Inside, his stomach is churning. Emergency board meetings don't happen at midnight. They don't happen during galas. In 31 years of life, Darius has never once been summoned like this. The doors slide open with a soft chime. The boardroom is already full. 12 faces turn toward him as he enters, the most powerful people in the Kingsley Empire, seated around a mahogany table that cost more than most people's houses. But something is different tonight. The usual deference is gone. The respectful nods, the small smiles, the subtle acknowledgments of his authority, all of it has vanished. Instead, they look at him like he's a stranger. "Sit down, Darius." The voice belongs to Margaret Chin, the board's senior member. She's been with the company since before Darius was born. Her loyalty to his father was legendary. Tonight her eyes are ice. Darius lowers himself into the chair at the head of the table. His chair. The chair his father sat in for 40 years. What's this about? He keeps his voice steady, but his hands grip the armrests a little too tightly. "I was in the middle of the gala. The foundation event we spend all year planning." Margaret slides a tablet across the table. "Watch." The screen flickers to life. And Darius's world begins to crack. The video is clear. High definition. Perfectly framed. It shows the ballroom, the crowd, the chandeliers. And it shows Darius Kingsley III slapping an elderly woman across the face. The audio catches everything. His cruel words. Her trembling voice. The sickening crack of palm against cheek. The laughter of his friends. Darius watches himself on screen, and for the first time in his life, he sees what everyone else sees. A monster. "Turn it off." His voice comes out hoarse. The video has already been sent to every major news outlet in the country. Margaret's tone is clinical, detached. By morning it will be everywhere. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, social media. Everywhere. Darius feels the blood drain from his face. Who recorded this? Who sent it? That's not the issue right now. An older man at the far end of the table speaks up. Harold Brooks, the company's chief legal counsel. He's been with the Kingsleys for decades, handling every delicate matter, burying every inconvenient truth. But tonight, Harold looks like he's about to deliver a death sentence. "The issue," Harold continues, "is your father's will." Darius's head snaps toward him. "What about it?" "There's a clause. One that was kept confidential until certain conditions were met." Harold opens a leather folder and pulls out a document. "Your father called it the Legacy Protection Provision." "I've never heard of it." "That was intentional." Harold adjusts his glasses. "Your father was very specific about when this information should be revealed. He knew, Darius. Knew your temper. Knew your weaknesses. He hoped this day would never come." Harold slides the document across the table. Darius's eyes scan the legal language, searching for meaning through the fog of confusion. And then he sees it. In the event that the primary heir to the Kingsley estate engages in any act of public disgrace, violence, or conduct unbecoming of the family name, as witnessed by no fewer than 100 persons or documented by verifiable means, The entirety of the Kingsley holdings shall immediately transfer to the secondary beneficiary. Darius reads the words 3 times. They don't change. Secondary beneficiary? His voice cracks. What's secondary beneficiary? I'm the only heir. Harold exchanges a look with Margaret. The silence in the room is suffocating. That's where things get complicated, Margaret says slowly. Your father amended the will 6 weeks before his death. He named a secondary beneficiary. Someone he said had a rightful claim to the estate. Who? Darius is on his feet now, his chair skidding backward. Who is it? Harold takes a deep breath. A woman named Mabel Thornton. The name hits Darius like a physical blow. He stumbles back, grabbing the edge of the table to steady himself. The old woman, he whispers. The one from tonight. The widow of Jerome Thornton, Margaret confirms. Your father's original business partner. The room tilts. Darius can feel his heartbeat in his throat, his temples, his fingertips. This can't be happening. This isn't real. I don't know any Jerome Thornton. My father built this company alone. He always said. Your father lied. Harold's voice is gentle but firm. Jerome Thornton was his partner from 1985 to 1989. They built Kingsley Construction together. But when the company hit its first major success, Raymond pushed Jerome out. Took his shares, his credit, his name. Erased him from the company's history. That's impossible. It's documented. Harold pulls out another folder, thicker than the first. Bank records. Contracts. Partnership agreements. All of it buried for decades, but all of it real. Darius stares at the folder like it's a bomb about to detonate. Jerome Thornton died in 1989, Harold continues. Heart attack officially. But there were always questions. Your father carried that guilt with him until the end. So what? Darius's voice rises, desperate now. So my father had a partner 30 years ago. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't give some random widow the right to my inheritance. It does when your father wrote it into his will. Margaret stands, her patience clearly thinning. Raymond knew what he did was wrong. He spent his final months trying to make it right. The legacy protection provision wasn't just about public disgrace, Darius. It was about ensuring that if you proved yourself unworthy, the Thornton family would finally receive what they were owed. This is insane. Darius slams his fist on the table. I'll fight it. I'll hire every lawyer in New York. You'll what? Harold's voice cuts through his fury. The will is ironclad. Your father made sure of that. He knew you'd fight. He planned for every contingency. Why? The word comes out broken, almost a sob. Why would he do this to me? Margaret looks at him for a long moment. When she speaks, her voice is almost sad. Because he loved you, Darius. But he also knew you. He knew your temper, your arrogance, your cruelty. He hoped the threat of losing everything would keep you in check. He hoped you'd never trigger the clause. She pauses. He was wrong. Darius stands frozen, surrounded by people who used to worship the ground he walked on. Now they look at him with something worse than anger. They look at him with pity. 23 minutes remaining. And halfway across the city, Mabel Thornton receives a phone call. It's done. Harold's voice comes through the line. The board has been informed. The legal transfer is in motion. Mabel closes her eyes and lets out a breath she's been holding for 15 years. Thank you, Harold. Don't thank me yet. Darius won't go quietly. He'll fight this with everything he has. Let him fight. Mabel's voice is steady. I've been waiting longer than he's been alive. I can wait a little longer. She hangs up and looks at Jerome's portrait once more. It's almost over, she whispers. Almost. But here's the thing about justice. It's never as simple as we want it to be. Because even as Mabel prepares to claim her victory, there's one more secret waiting to be revealed. A secret that will change everything. What do you think Darius will do when he realizes his entire life has been built on a lie? And what is the secret that's still waiting in the shadows? Stay with me because the next chapter changes everything. The document sits in front of Darius like a live grenade. He hasn't moved in 3 minutes. The board members shift uncomfortably in their seats, watching the heir to the Kingsley fortune slowly come apart at the seams. There has to be a way out. His voice is barely a whisper. There's always a way out. Darius. Harold leans forward, his tone careful. The clause is clear. The video is evidence. 300 witnesses saw what happened. The transfer is legally binding. Then I'll pay her off. Darius looks up, a spark of desperate hope in his eyes. Everyone has a price. How much does she want? 10 million? 20? I'll write the check tonight. Margaret shakes her head slowly. You don't understand. Mabel Thornton doesn't want your money. She wants justice. There's a difference. Justice. Darius laughs, but there's no humor in it. An old woman who's been living in some Harlem apartment for 30 years suddenly gets handed $1 billion empire, and that's justice? Her husband built this empire. Harold's voice sharpens for the first time. Jerome Thornton poured his blood into Kingsley construction. He worked 18-hour days. He mortgaged his house, risked everything he had. And your father took it all. My father was a great man. Your father was a thief. The words fall like stones into still water. A brilliant one, I'll grant you. But a thief nonetheless. Darius wants to argue. He wants to defend the man who raised him, who taught him everything he knows about power and success. But the evidence is sitting right in front of him. Bank records. Contracts. Signatures. 30 years of buried truth, finally clawing its way into the light. Why did he tell you all this? Darius looks at Harold, then at Margaret. If he was so guilty, why put it in writing? Why create this clause? Margaret sighs. Because guilt does strange things to people, especially when they know they're dying. Your father called me to his bedside 3 weeks before the end. He was lucid, clear-minded. He told me everything. The partnership, the betrayal, the cover-up. He said he'd been running from it his whole life, but he couldn't run anymore. He could have just given the Thorntons money. Made a donation, a trust fund, anything. Why this? Because money wasn't the point. Harold closes the folder. Raymond Kingsley stole more than just profits. He stole Jerome Thornton's legacy. His name. His place in history. Money can't fix that. So instead, he sets me up to fail? Darius's voice rises. He creates a trap, knowing I'd walk right into it? He created a test. Margaret's tone is firm. One you could have passed simply by being a decent human being. By treating people with respect, regardless of their status. By not assaulting elderly women at charity galas. The words land like a punch to the gut. Darius opens his mouth to respond, but nothing comes out. Because she's right. He knows she's right. The video plays again in his mind. His sneering face, his raised hand, the crack of impact. He did this to himself. 17 minutes remaining. Across town, Mabel is not celebrating. She sits in her kitchen, staring at a cup of tea that has long gone cold. The triumph she expected to feel hasn't arrived. Instead, there's just a hollow ache in her chest, a cavity where 15 years of anger used to live. The phone rings. She answers without looking at the screen. Mrs. Thornton? A young voice, professional. This is Sandra Ellis from the Kingsley board. I'm calling to confirm that the asset transfer is proceeding as documented. We'll need you to come to the offices tomorrow morning to sign the final paperwork. Thank you. Mabel's voice is flat. I'll be there. Is there anything else you need, ma'am? A car? Security? The press will likely be. I'll be fine. She hangs up and looks around her apartment. The peeling paint on the walls. The radiator that clanks every winter. The water stain on the ceiling that she's been meaning to fix for a decade. By tomorrow, she could buy this entire building. She could buy this entire block. But Jerome won't be there to see it. That's the thing about revenge that nobody tells you. You spend so long planning it, building toward it, that you forget to imagine what comes after. And when it finally arrives, you realize that victory doesn't fill the empty spaces. It just makes you notice them more. There's a knock at the door. Mabel frowns. It's past midnight. She's not expecting anyone. She moves to the door slowly, her hip protesting with every step. Through the peephole, she sees a face she recognizes. Her heart nearly stops. Standing in her hallway, looking like he's aged 10 years in the last hour, is Darius Kingsley III. She doesn't open the door. Not yet. Mrs. Thornton. His voice comes through the wood, cracked and desperate. I know you're there. Please. I just want to talk. We have nothing to talk about. I know what you're doing. His shadow shifts on the other side of the door. I know about the clause, about the video, about everything. I know I can't stop it. Silence. Then why are you here? There's a long pause. When he speaks again, his voice is different. Smaller. I need to understand. I need to know why my father did this. Why he left everything to you instead of fighting to protect me. Mabel closes her eyes. She should leave him standing there. She should let him suffer the way Jerome suffered, the way she suffered for 15 years. But revenge isn't the only thing Jerome taught her. He also taught her about mercy. Slowly she unlocks the door. Darius stands in her doorway, his expensive suit wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled. Up close, he looks younger than his 31 years. He looks like a child who's just learned that monsters are real. Come in, she says quietly. But listen carefully, because I'm only going to tell this story once. What do you think Mabel is about to reveal? Is Darius capable of change, or is it too late for redemption? The truth about his father is about to come out, and it will change everything. Darius steps into the apartment like a man walking into a foreign country. The space is clean but small. Everything about it speaks of careful maintenance, of making do, of a life lived within tight margins. He's never been in a place like this. Never even imagined it. On the wall, he notices a photograph. A black man in a hard hat, standing in front of a construction site. The man is smiling, proud, alive with possibility. That's Jerome. Mabel follows his gaze. That photo was taken in 1988, the day we broke ground on what would become Kingsley Tower. Darius stares at the image. There's something familiar about the construction site in the background. The layout, the surroundings. It's the same building where he just came from. The same tower where his office sits on the 63rd floor. I don't understand. His voice is raw. If he was really my father's partner, why have I never heard his name? Why is there no record of him anywhere? Mabel gestures toward a worn armchair. Sit down. This is going to take a while. She settles into the chair across from him, her movements slow and deliberate. The clock on the wall ticks softly, marking the passage of time. Your father and my Jerome met in 1985, she begins. Both of them hungry, both of them dreamers. Raymond had the connections. His family knew people, had just enough money to get meetings with the right folks. But Jerome had the talent, the vision. He was the one who knew how to build things that would last. She pauses, her eyes distant. They were good together at first. Best friends, practically brothers. Jerome used to come home talking about Raymond like he'd found his soulmate in business. They were going to change the skyline of New York, he said. They were going to build something that would last forever. What happened? Mabel's jaw tightens. Success happened. By 1988, Kingsley Construction had landed its first major contract. A 40-story office building in Midtown. It was going to put them on the map. The Morrison Building. Darius recognizes the project from company history. That was my father's first big win. That was Jerome's design. Mabel's voice sharpens. Every line, every calculation, every innovation that made that building special, it came from my husband's mind. But when the press came calling, when the award started rolling in, Raymond made sure only one name was mentioned. Maybe Jerome didn't want the spotlight. Some people prefer. Don't. The word cuts through the air like a blade. Don't make excuses for what your father did. Jerome wanted credit. He demanded it. He had contracts, paperwork, evidence of their partnership. But Raymond had lawyers. Expensive ones. The kind who know how to make documents disappear, how to rewrite history. Darius feels something cold settle in his chest. My father wouldn't. Your father would, and he did. Mabel reaches into a drawer beside her chair and pulls out a worn folder. I've kept these for 30 years. Copies of everything. The original partnership agreement. Bank records showing shared investments. Letters between them discussing the business as equals. She drops the folder on the table between them. Look at them. Go ahead. Tell me what you see. Darius picks up the folder with trembling hands. The documents inside are yellowed with age, but the signatures are clear. His father's handwriting, unmistakable. And next to it, another name, Jerome Thornton. The partnership agreement is dated March 15, 1986. It specifies equal ownership, equal profits, equal credit. He erased him. Darius's voice is hollow. He took everything and erased him. And when Jerome tried to fight back, when he hired his own lawyers and prepared to take your father to court. Mabel trails off, her voice cracking for the first time. What happened? Heart attack. She says the words like they're poison. 3 days before the trial was supposed to begin. 43 years old, healthy as an ox, and suddenly his heart just stopped. Darius looks up sharply. You think my father? I don't know what I think. Mabel's eyes are wet, but her voice is steady. I can't prove anything. The doctors said it was natural causes. But Jerome wasn't stressed. He was excited. He was finally going to get justice. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. I've spent 15 years wondering. 15 years asking myself if your father was capable of something like that. And you know what I've decided? What? It doesn't matter. She meets his gaze directly. Whether he killed Jerome or just let him die, the result is the same. My husband is gone. His legacy was stolen. And your father got to live out his days as a king while I survived on Social Security in a 3-room apartment. The clock ticks. Outside, a siren wails in the distance. The world continues to turn, indifferent to the wreckage being revealed in this small room. The clause in the will. Darius's voice is barely audible. The one that transfers everything to you. My father wrote that. 6 weeks before he died. Mabel nods. He called me. First time we'd spoken in 28 years. He was crying. Said he couldn't go to his grave with this on his conscience. Said he wanted to make things right. So he set me up to fail. No. Mabel shakes her head slowly. He gave you a chance to be better than him. All you had to do was not be cruel. All you had to do was treat people with basic human dignity. She gestures toward the window, toward the city beyond. 300 people at that gala. 300 opportunities to be kind. And you chose violence. Darius has no response. The weight of his actions, of his father's actions, presses down on him like a physical force. There's something else. Mabel's voice drops. Something your father told me in that phone call. Something I've never shared with anyone. Darius looks up, his eyes red-rimmed. Your grandmother, Raymond's mother, she knew. She knew about Jerome, about the partnership, about everything. She's the one who helped Raymond bury the evidence. She's the one who paid off the lawyers who made my husband disappear from history. Grandmother Elena? Darius sounds like a child who's just learned that Santa Claus isn't real. She died when I was 12. She was the sweetest woman I ever knew. To you maybe. Mabel's voice is flat. To Jerome and me, she was the architect of our destruction. She looked at my husband, a black man with calloused hands and a brilliant mind, and she decided he wasn't worthy of standing next to her precious son. The final piece falls into place. Not just his father's betrayal, but generations of it. A family built on stolen foundations, maintained through cruelty and lies. I'm sorry. The words fall from Darius's mouth before he can stop them. I'm so sorry. Mabel studies him for a long moment, looking for something. Deceit maybe, or the calculation she's learned to expect from anyone with the Kingsley name. But all she sees is a broken young man, drowning in the sins of his father. Sorry doesn't bring Jerome back. Her voice softens just slightly. Sorry doesn't give me the 30 years I spent in poverty while your family lived in palaces. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Then what does? Darius leans forward, desperate. What can I do? There has to be something. Mabel is quiet for a long time. The clock continues its steady rhythm. "There is one thing," she finally says. "But you're not going to like it." The question hangs in the air between them, heavy with possibility and dread. Because whatever Mabel is about to ask, it will cost Darius more than money. More than pride. It might cost him everything he thought he was. What do you think Mabel is about to demand? Is Darius capable of redemption, or has he crossed a line that can never be uncrossed? The next chapter reveals the price of forgiveness, and it's higher than you can imagine. "I want you to tell the truth." The words hang in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Darius blinks, waiting for more. Waiting for the demand that makes sense, the money, the property, the pound of flesh he's been bracing himself to surrender. But Mabel just sits there in her worn armchair, hands folded in her lap, calm as a woman who's already won. "That's it." His voice sounds foreign to his own ears. "You want me to tell the truth? Not just tell it." She leans forward, and suddenly those tired eyes aren't tired anymore. They're steel. "I want you to stand in front of cameras and microphones and say Jerome Thornton's name. I want you to explain, in your own words, what your family did to him. And I want you to put his name on that building. First, where it belongs." The request is so simple it feels like a trap. "You want me to destroy everything my family built." "Your family didn't build anything." Her voice cuts clean. "They stole." "There's a difference between a builder and a thief, Darius. Your father was a thief. The question is, what are you?" He stands abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. The apartment suddenly feels suffocating, the walls pressing in. "If I do this, I have nothing left. The board will never trust a Kingsley again. Shareholders will flee. Partners will disappear. Everything collapses." It's already collapsing. Mabel doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. The clause has been triggered. The transfer happens at midnight whether you confess or stay silent. Your empire ends tonight either way. She lets that sink in before continuing. "The only choice you have now is how you want to be remembered. As the man who fought to keep stolen property. Or as the man who finally told the truth." Darius moves to the window. Below, Harlem stretches out in the darkness. Bodegas with neon signs, apartment buildings with lit windows, lives being lived without any knowledge of the drama unfolding in this small room. "Why does my confession matter to you? You're getting everything anyway." "Because money isn't justice." Mabel rises slowly from her chair, moving to stand beside him at the window. "I could take every penny of the Kingsley fortune, and Jerome would still be erased. His name would still be missing from the buildings he designed. History books would still pretend he never existed." She touches the glass, her reflection ghostly against the night. "I'm 72 years old. My knees ache when it rains. My memory isn't what it used to be. In 10 years, maybe less, I'll be gone. And when I go, who's left to remember Jerome? Who's left to say his name?" Her voice cracks just slightly. "My children grew up without their father. My grandchildren never met him. All they know are stories, photographs, fragments of a man who should have been a legend." She turns to face Darius directly. "But if you confess, if a Kingsley stands up and admits what was done, then Jerome becomes part of the permanent record. Every article about this scandal will mention him. Every documentary, every business school case study, every history of New York real estate. His name lives forever. And that's worth more than money? That's worth everything." Darius stares at his reflection in the window. The man looking back seems like a stranger, hollow-eyed, uncertain, stripped of every armor he's ever worn. "I don't know if I can do it." The admission costs him something. Standing up in front of the world, admitting my father was a fraud, admitting I'm the son of a thief. "You're not admitting who you are." Mabel's hand touches his arm, surprisingly gentle. "You're deciding who you want to become. Those are very different things." The clock on the wall shows 11:52 p.m. 8 minutes until midnight. 8 minutes until the legal transfer is complete and the Kingsley Empire officially belongs to Mabel Thornton. But something larger than money hangs in the balance now. "My father used to tell me stories about building the company." Darius speaks slowly, testing each word. Late nights, early mornings, deals made on handshakes. He made it sound heroic. Like he'd conquered the world through sheer willpower. He was good at stories. Mabel's tone is bitter. Jerome used to say Raymond could sell ice to polar bears. Charm was his weapon. Did Jerome ever suspect? Before the betrayal? Mabel is quiet for a long moment. Once, about 6 months before everything fell apart, Jerome came home troubled. Said Raymond had been acting strange, secretive meetings, phone calls he'd end when Jerome walked in. I told him he was being paranoid. I told him Raymond was his brother in everything but blood. Her jaw tightens. I was wrong. And I've spent 30 years wondering if things would have been different if I'd listened. If I'd told him to trust his instincts. You can't blame yourself for... I don't. She cuts him off. I blame your father. And I blame a system that made it so easy for a white man with the right connections to erase a black man with the real talent. The words land like stones in still water, rippling outward. The press conference is scheduled for 9 a.m. Mabel moves toward the door. The choice is yours. Show up and tell the truth, or stay home and let the lawyers fight over the scraps. Either way, I've already won. She opens the door, waiting. Darius doesn't move. His mind is racing through calculations, damage control, legal strategies, ways to spin this, ways to survive. But underneath all that noise, something else is stirring. Something that feels almost like relief. Mrs. Thornton. He turns to face her. The building rename. What exactly would that involve? The flicker of something, hope maybe, crosses her face. A ceremony. New signage. Press coverage. The Thornton Kingsley building. Jerome's name first, in letters just as large. And you think that will be enough? After everything? Nothing will ever be enough. Her honesty is brutal. But it's a start. Sometimes a start is all we get. Darius nods slowly. I need to think. You have until morning. She steps into the hallway. But Darius, one more thing. He looks at her. When Jerome was dying, those last few days in the hospital, he made me promise something. He said if justice ever came, I shouldn't let it turn me into the kind of person who destroyed him. He said revenge rots the soul if you hold on to it too long. She pauses, her eyes wet. I've been holding on to this for 30 years. Tomorrow, one way or another, I let it go. I'd rather let it go with you standing beside me than with you fighting against me. The door closes behind her. Darius stands alone in the empty apartment, surrounded by photographs of a man he never knew but whose shadow has somehow shaped his entire life. His phone buzzes. A text from the board. Transfer complete. Kingsley Industries is no longer under family control. Emergency session scheduled for 8 a.m. to discuss transition. Midnight has passed. The empire is gone. All that remains is the choice of who Darius Kingsley wants to be when the sun rises. He pulls out his phone and opens a new text to Patricia, his assistant. Cancel my morning meetings. Clear my schedule until noon. Then he adds, and find me the best public speaking coach in New York. I have a confession to write. He sends the message and stands there for a long time, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Somewhere out there, Mabel Thornton is probably doing the same thing. Looking at the same sky, thinking about the same morning. Two people on opposite sides of a wound that's been bleeding for 3 decades. Tomorrow, maybe, it finally starts to heal. What do you think? Is Darius really ready to change, or is this just another performance? And will Mabel's gamble pay off, or will she regret giving him this chance? The morning is coming, and everything depends on what happens next. The podium feels like a guillotine. Darius grips the edges, knuckles white, staring out at a sea of cameras and hungry faces. Every major news outlet in the country has sent their sharpest reporters, their most aggressive photographers. The air crackles with anticipation. They smell blood. And they're right. Behind him, the Kingsley corporate logo looms on a massive screen. The same logo that's adorned buildings, letterheads, and magazine covers for 40 years. By the end of this press conference, it might mean nothing at all. His hands won't stop shaking. He'd been up all night, writing and rewriting his statement. Every version felt wrong. Too defensive, too apologetic, too rehearsed. Finally, around 4 a.m., he'd thrown out all of it. Crumpled the pages, deleted the files. If he was going to tell the truth, it had to be in his own words. Unpolished. The room falls silent as he approaches the microphone. He can hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Thank you all for coming. His voice comes out steadier than expected, but there's a tremor underneath. I know you have questions about last night. I'm going to answer them. But first, I need to tell you a story. He pauses. 34 years ago, two young men started a construction company. They were hungry, ambitious, full of dreams about changing the New York skyline. One of them had connections, family money, the right last name, doors that opened easily. The other had something else. Talent, vision, genius. The word hangs in the air. That second man was named Jerome Thornton. And without him, there would be no Kingsley Empire. No towers. No foundation. Nothing. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Reporters exchange glances, fingers flying over phones and tablets. My father and Jerome were partners. Real partners with contracts and handshakes and shared dreams. Together, they built something remarkable. But when success came, when the money started flowing and the awards started piling up, my father made a choice. Darius's throat tightens. He forces himself to continue. He pushed Jerome out. Rewrote the contracts. Erased his name from every document, every record, every piece of history. He took a black man's life work and claimed it as his own. And then, when Jerome tried to fight back, when he hired lawyers and prepared to expose the truth, his voice breaks. He takes a moment. Jerome Thornton died. Heart attack, the doctors said. 43 years old. Healthy. Gone. The silence in the room is absolute. I can't prove what happened to Jerome. Neither can his family. But I can tell you what I know for certain. My father built his empire on a stolen foundation. Every building with the Kingsley name, every award, every dollar, all of it was taken from a man who should have been celebrated as one of the greatest architects of his generation. He looks directly into the nearest camera. And last night, I slapped that man's widow across the face in front of 300 people. The room erupts. Questions shouted, cameras flashing, chaos. Darius raises his hand for quiet. There's no excuse for what I did. None. I was cruel and arrogant and everything my father raised me to be. Mabel Thornton came to that gala to honor her husband's memory, and I humiliated her for daring to exist in the same room as me. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a single sheet of paper. This is a signed agreement to rename Kingsley Tower. Effective immediately, it will become the Thornton Kingsley Building. Jerome's name will come first, in letters just as large, just as visible. Because that's where it always should have been. More chaos. More questions. But Darius isn't finished. I'm also announcing my resignation as CEO of what used to be Kingsley Industries. The company will be restructured under Mrs. Thornton's direction. Whatever she decides to do with it, keep it, sell it, burn it to the ground, is her right. He folds the paper and puts it back in his pocket. I know this confession doesn't fix anything. It doesn't bring Jerome back. It doesn't erase 30 years of injustice. It doesn't make me a good person. He pauses, searching for the right words. But I hope it's a start. I hope that by telling this truth, publicly, permanently, with my own voice, I can give Jerome Thornton something my father stole from him. A legacy. A name that future generations will remember. He steps back from the podium. That's all I have to say. The questions explode like fireworks, but Darius doesn't answer them. He walks off the stage, past the shouting reporters, past the stunned executives, past the life he used to know. And he doesn't look back. In the hallway behind the press room, Mabel is waiting. She stands alone, wearing the same navy dress from 2 nights ago. Her eyes are red-rimmed but dry. Watching him approach, her expression shifts through something too complex to name. That was brave. Her voice is barely above a whisper. It was necessary. He shakes his head. I kept thinking about what you said, about Jerome believing people could change. About not letting this turn you into something ugly. And I realized I've been ugly my whole life. Cruel without reason. Arrogant without achievement. I inherited everything and earned nothing, and I convinced myself that made me special. He meets her eyes. Your husband built something real. Something that mattered. All I've ever built is walls, between myself and anyone who might see the truth about who I am. Mabel studies him for a long moment, looking for the lie, the angle, the manipulation. She doesn't find it. Jerome would have said you took the first step today. Her voice softens just slightly. He always believed in first steps. Said that's how building started. One brick, then another, then another. I don't know what comes next. Darius's voice is raw. I've never not known what comes next. Nobody does. A ghost of a smile crosses her face. That's what makes it interesting. She reaches out and touches his arm. The gesture is brief but warm, the first kind touch he's received since his world collapsed. Go home, Darius. Try to sleep. Tomorrow there'll be lawyers and paperwork and 1,000 decisions to make. And you? I'm going to visit Jerome. She glances toward the windows, toward the city beyond. Tell him what happened today. I think he'd want to know. She turns and walks away, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Darius watches until she disappears around the corner. Then he pulls out his phone. 57 missed calls. Hundreds of texts. His name trending on every social media platform. He ignores all of it. Instead, he opens a new note and types 3 words. Puma. It's not an answer. It's a question. The first real question he's ever asked himself. And maybe that's the whole point. The press conference is over. The confession is out. The empire has fallen. But the real story, the story of who Darius Kingsley becomes now that everything's been stripped away, is just beginning. What do you think happens when a man loses everything he thought defined him? Can destruction be the first step toward rebuilding? Stay with me. The consequences are just beginning. The headlines hit like a hurricane. Kingsley heir admits family fortune built on theft. Billionaire's public confession stuns business world. The fall of an empire, how one slap exposed decades of fraud. Every news channel runs the story on loop. Every paper puts Darius's face on the front page. Social media explodes with opinions, some calling him a monster, others calling him brave, most just calling him finished. Darius watches none of it. He sits in his penthouse, soon to be someone else's penthouse, staring at the walls that suddenly feel like they belong to a stranger. The art worth millions. The furniture chosen by decorators he never met. The view of Central Park that he's looked at 1,000 times without really seeing. All of it meaningless now. His phone has been ringing nonstop, but he's answered only one call. Marcus, demanding to know what the hell happened. Darius had tried to explain, but the words came out wrong. Too simple, too strange. I told the truth, he'd said. That's all. Marcus had called him crazy. Said he'd thrown away everything for some old woman with a grudge. Said the lawyers could have fought it for years, bled out the clock, protected at least some of the assets. You could have survived this, Marcus had insisted. You could have kept something. I didn't want to keep it anymore. The silence on the other end had been deafening. Now, alone in the quiet of his soon-to-be former home, Darius finally understands what he couldn't explain. Keeping the empire would have meant protecting the lie. Every dollar he spent, every deal he made, every handshake and smile and toast at fancy parties, all of it would have been built on Jerome Thornton's grave. He'd rather have nothing. A knock at the door startles him. He's not expecting anyone. The doorman usually calls up. He opens it to find Denise Thornton Williams standing in the hallway. She's taller than her mother, with the same sharp eyes and a presence that fills the doorframe. Her natural hair is streaked with silver, and she wears a simple blazer over jeans, practical, no nonsense. Mr. Kingsley. Her voice is neutral, giving nothing away. May I come in? He steps aside without a word. She walks through the penthouse slowly, taking in the opulence. Her expression is unreadable, but something flickers in her eyes when she passes the window overlooking the city. Nice view. It's not a compliment. My father used to describe what this building would look like from up here. He drew sketches of the skyline from this exact angle, before this building even existed. I didn't know. No. She turns to face him. You didn't know anything. That's part of the problem. Darius doesn't defend himself. What would be the point? I watched your press conference. Denise settles into one of the leather chairs without being invited. 3 times, actually, trying to figure out if you were being genuine or just performing damage control. What did you decide? I haven't. Her eyes bore into his. Men like your father, they're good at seeming sincere. Charm runs in certain families like a genetic disorder. I wanted to see for myself whether you inherited it. And? Still deciding. She pulls out a folder and drops it on the coffee table. This is the proposal for the Thornton Foundation. My mother's using the settlement money to establish it. Scholarships for young architects and engineers from underrepresented communities. Mentorship programs. Resources for people who have talent but not connections. Darius picks up the folder and flips through it. Detailed plans, budget projections, partnership opportunities. Serious work by serious people. What do you want from me? Your participation. Denise leans forward. Not your money, you don't have any left. Not your connections, those are gone too. What I want is your story. He looks up, confused. You've lived both sides now. The top of the mountain and the bottom of the valley. You know what it feels like to have everything and to have nothing. That perspective is rare. She taps the folder. We want you to speak. Schools, community centers, corporate conferences. Tell people what your family did and why it was wrong. Help young professionals understand how power corrupts, how systems protect the powerful, and how truth can still win if someone is willing to fight for it. You want me to be a cautionary tale. I want you to be useful. Her tone sharpens. For the first time in your privileged life, I want you to do something that actually matters. The words sting, but Darius doesn't flinch. He deserves worse. Why would anyone listen to me? After everything I've done? Because transformation is more interesting than perfection. Denise stands, moving to the window. Nobody wants to hear from saints. People want to see someone fall and get back up. They want proof that change is possible, even for the worst of us. Is that what you think I am? The worst? She considers the question carefully. I think you're your father's son. I think you grew up in a world that told you certain people matter and others don't. I think you believed it because it was easy to believe. She turns back to face him. But I also think you stood up in front of the whole world and told the truth when you could have stayed silent. That's not nothing. Darius sets down the folder. What would I even say? Hi, I'm the guy who slapped an elderly widow and lost everything. Learn from my mistakes. Something like that. A hint of a smile crosses her face. Maybe workshop the delivery a bit. For the first time in days, Darius feels something other than despair. Not hope exactly, but possibility. I'll do it. The words come out before he's fully considered them. Whatever you need. Speaking, organizing, manual labor, I don't care. Just tell me where to show up. Denise extends her hand. Welcome to the Thornton Foundation, Darius. Try not to screw this up. He shakes it firmly. I'll do my best. Your best wasn't good enough before. Her grip tightens just slightly. Make it better. She releases his hand and heads for the door. At the threshold, she pauses. My father used to say that buildings are only as strong as their foundations. He meant it literally, but I always thought it applied to people too. She looks back at him. You spent 31 years building on sand. Now you have a chance to start over, on solid ground this time. Don't waste it. The door closes behind her. Darius stands alone in the middle of his empty future, holding a folder full of plans for a foundation named after a man his family destroyed. It's not redemption. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it's a first step. And right now, that's enough. The empire has fallen. The confession has been made. But the real work, the work of becoming someone worthy of this second chance, is just beginning. What do you think Darius will do with this opportunity? Can a man truly rebuild himself from nothing? The coffee shop is nothing special. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead. The espresso machine hisses and sputters. A tired barista wipes down the counter without looking up. This is the kind of place Darius would have walked past 1,000 times without ever setting foot inside. Too ordinary. Too small. Beneath his notice. Now, it's where he's meeting Jerome Thornton's daughter for the 3rd time this week. Denise sits in the corner booth, laptop open, papers scattered across the table. She's been running on coffee and determination for months, building the foundation from scratch while managing her mother's health and fielding endless media requests. She looks up as Darius approaches. "You're late." "Subway delay." He slides into the seat across from her. "Didn't realize how long it takes when you don't have a driver." "Welcome to real life." She pushes a stack of papers toward him. "These are the talking points for the Howard University speech next week. I need you to review them tonight." He picks up the papers and scans the first page. Themes of accountability. The importance of ethical leadership. The cost of silent complicity. It's good. He sets them down. But it's missing something. What? Doubt. He meets her eyes. "These talking points make it sound like I figured everything out. Like I woke up one day and suddenly became a better person. That's not how it works." "Then tell me how it works." Darius is quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Most mornings I still wake up angry. Not at your mother, not at Jerome, at myself. For being so blind for so long. For never questioning the stories my father told me. For slapping an old woman and feeling justified in the moment." He shakes his head. "The change isn't clean. It's messy and slow, and I don't trust myself most of the time. I keep waiting for the old Darius to come back, the one who thought cruelty was strength and wealth was worth. And he does come back. In flashes. When someone cuts me off in traffic. When I see old friends living the life I used to have. When I'm exhausted and frustrated and it would be so easy to just blame everyone else." Denise listens without interrupting. "That's what I want to tell those students." Darius leans forward. "Not that change is simple, but that it's worth fighting for even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." She studies him for a long moment. "Add that to the speech. You trust me to go off script?" "I trust you to tell the truth." A ghost of a smile crosses her face. "That seems to be the one thing you're actually good at now." He laughs, really laughs, for the first time in weeks. It sounds strange coming out of his mouth. Foreign but familiar. "How's your mother doing?" The smile fades from Denise's face. "Tired. The stress of the last few months has taken a toll. The doctors say she needs to slow down, but you know how she is. Stubborn. Determined." Denise corrects. "There's a difference." She closes her laptop and looks at him directly. "She asked about you yesterday. Wanted to know if you were keeping your commitments." "What did you tell her?" "That you haven't missed a single meeting. That you've spoken at 4 schools in the last month. That you're actually doing the work." She pauses. She seemed pleased. Darius feels something warm spread through his chest. Not pride exactly, he hasn't earned that yet. But something. The ribbon cutting for the center is next month. Denise pulls out a calendar. "My mother wants you there. On stage with the family." "Are you sure?" "Some people might see that as what?" "Forgiveness." She shakes her head. "My mother doesn't forgive easy. But she recognizes growth when she sees it. And she thinks having you there sends a message." "What message?" "That the truth is more powerful than revenge. That redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the work." She holds his gaze. "That Jerome's legacy isn't just about what your family took. It's about what gets built in its place." Darius nods slowly. "I'll be there." "Good." She starts packing up her papers. "Now go home and rewrite that speech. I want to see the messy version. The real version." She stands to leave, then pauses. "Darius." "Yeah. My father used to say that anyone can build a tower, but it takes real courage to tear one down and start over." She looks at him with something that might almost be respect. "I think he would have appreciated what you're trying to do." Before he can respond, she's gone, out the door and into the crowded street. Darius sits alone in the coffee shop for a long time, watching the city move past the window. People rushing to work, living their lives, carrying their own burdens and dreams. A year ago, he wouldn't have noticed any of them. Now he sees them, really sees them. And for the first time, he understands what Jerome Thornton knew all along. Buildings don't matter. Empires don't matter. The only thing that lasts is how you treat the people around you. How you honor their dreams. How you remember their names. The ribbon cutting is 1 month away. The center that will carry Jerome's name is almost complete. And Darius Kingsley, former billionaire, former villain, former ghost, is finally becoming something real. The question is, will it be enough? What do you think Jerome would say if he could see what's happening now? Would he forgive the son of the man who destroyed him? Or would he say that some debts can never be repaid? 1 year later, the morning sun catches the letters carved into stone, making them glow like something sacred. The Jerome Thornton Center for Architectural Excellence. Mabel stands at the entrance, one hand resting on the wall her husband designed in his dreams decades ago. The building is real now, brick and glass and steel, rising 4 stories into the Manhattan sky. Around her, hundreds of people gather for the opening ceremony. Journalists, dignitaries, students, dreamers. All here to witness what patience and truth can build. She takes a deep breath and walks to the podium. The crowd falls silent. 50 years ago, she begins, her voice stronger than it's been in months. A young man from Harlem fell in love with buildings. Not for the money they could make or the power they could represent, but for the simple magic of turning empty air into shelter, empty ground into home. She pauses, looking out at the faces before her. That young man was my husband, Jerome Thornton. And everything you see around you, every tower, every monument, every piece of the New York skyline that takes your breath away, started in his mind, in his heart, in his hands. Her voice wavers but doesn't break. For 30 years, his name was erased. His work was stolen. His legacy was buried so deep that even his grandchildren never knew the truth. She grips the podium. But today we dig it up. Today, we plant it in the ground where it belongs. And today, we make sure that Jerome Thornton's name will never be forgotten again. Applause erupts. Mabel wipes her eyes and continues. This center will train the next generation of architects and engineers. Young people from communities that have been overlooked, undervalued, dismissed. Young people like Jerome was once, full of talent, full of vision, just waiting for someone to give them a chance. She looks toward the side of the stage. And I want to introduce someone who made this possible. Someone who chose truth over comfort, courage over convenience, redemption over denial. Darius steps forward. He looks different now. The expensive suits are gone, replaced by simple clothes that fit the man he's become. There's gray at his temples that wasn't there a year ago. Lines around his eyes from sleepless nights spent writing speeches and reviewing scholarship applications and trying to become worthy of this moment. He takes his place at the podium. A year ago, he says, I stood in a ballroom full of wealthy people and slapped an elderly widow across the face. I did it because I was cruel, because I was arrogant, because I believed my family name made me untouchable. He lets the words hang in the air. I was wrong. The crowd is silent. My father built his empire on stolen foundations. He erased a brilliant man from history and profited from his genius for decades. And I inherited not just his wealth, but his worst qualities. His contempt for people he considered beneath him. His belief that power justified any action. He looks at Mabel. Mrs. Thornton could have destroyed me. She had every right to. Instead, she gave me something I didn't deserve. A chance to help build something true. Something that honors the man my father erased. His voice thickens. I don't know if I'll ever truly make up for what I did. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. But I know this. Every student who walks through these doors, every scholarship we fund, every life we change, it's a brick in a new foundation. One built on truth instead of lies. He steps back from the podium. Thank you, Mrs. Thornton. For your patience, for your courage, and for believing that even the worst of us can change. The applause is thunderous. Mabel steps forward and takes his hand. They stand together, the widow and the former heir, the victim and the reformed perpetrator, looking out at a future neither could have imagined. "Cut the ribbon, Darius." Her voice is thick with emotion. "You've earned it." He picks up the ceremonial scissors. For a moment he hesitates. Then he cuts. The ribbon falls away. The doors open. Students stream through the entrance of a building that will change their lives, carrying the name of a man who should have been remembered long ago. And Mabel Thornton finally allows herself to cry. Not tears of grief. Not anymore. Tears of victory. Later, when the ceremony ends and the crowds disperse, Mabel visits Jerome's grave. The headstone is simple. Just his name, his dates, and a small inscription she chose 30 years ago. He built dreams into reality. She kneels beside it, placing fresh flowers against the cool stone. "We did it, baby." Her voice is barely a whisper. "Your name is on a building. Your story is being told. A new generation will learn because of what you created." The wind stirs through the cemetery, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass. "I kept my promise. It took 30 years, but I kept it." She kisses her fingers and presses them to his name. "Rest now, my love. Your legacy is safe." She stands slowly, looking out at the city skyline visible in the distance. The Thornton Kingsley building catches the afternoon light, its windows blazing like gold. Jerome's building. Jerome's name. Jerome's truth, finally told. Mabel smiles. Then she walks away, leaving the past where it belongs, carrying the future in her heart. This is how karma works. Not with explosions or dramatic confrontations. Not with villains destroyed and heroes triumphant. Sometimes it works slowly, quietly. One truth at a time, one brick at a time, one small act of courage after another. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply outliving the lies. And watching the truth finally rise. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in Mabel's place? Would you have waited 30 years for justice? Or would the anger have consumed you? What about Darius? Do you believe people can truly change? Or do our worst moments define us forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories matter too. Maybe you've experienced injustice. Maybe you've been the villain who needed redemption. Whatever your truth is, share it. Let's build a community where honesty matters and second chances are possible. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, made you feel, made you believe that patience and truth can still win, then do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications. Because this is just one story. There are thousands more waiting to be told. Stories of ordinary people fighting extraordinary battles. Stories of karma, justice, and the incredible power of never giving up. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, remember this. The foundation you build today determines the legacy you leave tomorrow. Make it strong. Make it true. Make it something worth remembering. I'll see you in the next story.